No, he's retired.
Hey Rex, glad you're here.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, good morning.
Thought you were taking the morning off.
Well, I considered that, you showed us other things, so. Thanks, got it squared away.
Good, well, thanks for being here.
Well, what a beautiful day out there.
Mm-hmm. There's one up there. Do you want me to go put it up there for you?
No, I'll do it.
I know Robert
It
has
just-
a
it
ton
just-
of them in his desk. I have mine, you want mine?
I'm just here to listen.
Yeah, out there. He said he should be. Okay, okay.
Oh, that was smart.
Oh, I brought extra copies of it too for everyone.
Thank you, you did, I'll take one.
So you've got two down there.
It's like Zoom, you can wear, for my Zoom hearings, I do Meredith, like, they only have, my camera only shows like my face, so like, I used to like get dressed up and I was like, hold on, it just shows my neck up, they really don't even, like, it just never even
Okay,
sees
that's
like
all I
what
have.
I have on, like, so, I don't even, I
Well, thicker than I thought it was.
don't know.
All right.
Yeah, I know what, yeah.
Oh, that's great. And that's a lot of what I wanted to chat about today.
Excuse the wrinkles,
Oh, that's
but
fine,
it's.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. That's,
All right, good morning. This is the Personnel Committee meeting of the Children's Trust at 10 a.m. on September 23rd. I'm David Peden, the chair of the committee, and we have four of our trust members here with us today, and Wendy Fairchild from Landrum HR, we're going to talk about the process for the search for the executive director for the trust. So, Wendy, I think they may have, yeah, they were all here for the meeting last time with the Zoom.
Yes.
So I think they've seen you before and everybody, yeah, in person. So this is just an open dialogue of how we're going to go about this process, and Wendy, I believe, wants to pick our brains a little bit on what we're looking for, but I'll let you start from here.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for selecting us. We're very excited about being a part of this new venture that we have here in Escambia County. I've done a lot of research. On the 13 that are here in Florida, and everybody seems to be a little bit different, so I was excited today to kind of come together and say, what has already been identified, and how are we going to go about this to make this the easiest process for the board. So kind of wanted to start out a little bit and get a little background information. Obviously, I know it's new, so I was out there on, Google, kind of doing as much research as I can about what has already kind of been established for this trust and the direction more that it's going in. So I kind of have a few questions wrapped around that, because obviously the bulk of what I found was when it was actually, they were doing the solicitation for, getting voter support and stuff like that. So that's a lot of the information. So some of that may have actually changed. So just trying to get because the more information that I can have, it's easier for me to translate to the candidate. So understand it's a 6, with the actual budget based on the taxes, that the Escambia County citizens are receiving, there is a 6% administrative cost, so that will be allocated to this trust for the actual administration of the program. Is that correct?
5%.
5?
Is what we're looking for.
Okay.
David, I get out loud.
No.
5% is kind of where we'd like to try to target anyway.
Okay.
And looking at that, I think through, as you've done, looking at some of both the other trust organizations, other nonprofits, et cetera, is trying to target that 5%. of take with it. Our goal being that then would mean that 95% of the
Absolutely.
funds would be going towards providing actual services. So
Absolutely.
that's kind of where,
Can I clarify?
please.
One other little thing, 3% goes to the tax collector. So we don't want to call that administrative, but it comes off the top. Just as we're looking at numbers, just something to remember.
Right.
That's a significant number.
Yes, and kind of what I was looking at is looking at from the perspective of the person who's going to come in here, how much are they going to have of this budget to be able to run this? Because it is a business, right? And so kind of looking at it. So that was kind of the question where I was kind of coming from there. Tenure life currently until it's up for reelection again, or I guess on the voter ballot again. Okay. And what are we looking at roughly as an annual budget for this, that they will be overseeing, this individual?
Total 10 million.
That's what I thought. What do you say? Okay. That's, okay. It's just, those are the types of things that we're going to be looking at when we're candidates, when we're trying to identify someone. You're going to want someone who has had experience with, close to the type of budget that you are currently looking at having, or, or somewhat over.
I want to, and I think, and again, if I'm out of line here, you all please correct me, because one of the things that I envision anyway, as this executive director doing, that 10 million, 9 to 10, is what is coming from the ad valorem taxes.
Right.
What I think we would all like to see is they go out and find some, whether philanthropic funding, whether other government grants, or whatever it may be, so that 10 million would be a baseline,
Awesome.
not the goal. And our goal would be that one of the ask of this executive director is they would be out there, whoever it may be, from local to national, applying for additional funding for us.
A lot of the CSCs get do grants and get matching dollars to the federal. So they have to be able to, and that's one of the things they have to learn how to do that.
Awesome. That was actually one of my questions, would that be one of the responsibilities of this position? I figured it was, but wanted to double check.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to point out. Yeah, that's a aspirational goal, but I mean, I think right now, as we're trying to get started, we need someone who has startup experience, someone who has had this opportunity, and I don't know how many people there will be out there that can come in and look at this substantial budget and help this board work through the process of creating capacity building, identifying needs in the community. You know, the group that got this onto the ballot and got it passed gave us amazing information, but we're still going to need someone to help the 10 of us hone in on where we need to be, and then the day-to-day operation, and to be able to tell us, you know, I can't do it all, I'm going to need this service or this person or someone with this skill set. So I'm thinking that it can't be somebody that has never had this type of experience.
Right. Agreed. Absolutely. And that leads me into another question that I have. Well, there are a couple questions. One, when are the funds available? Meaning ready to start the program. I mean, once we get this person in place, when are they able to move forward?
We're
Money becomes available in November.
November? Okay.
beginning in November and going through, I get,
But we have to set out requests for proposals and things like that, so we can figure out our focus area and do requests for proposals to the nonprofits. or to-
Right, and that's great. Y'all are each segueing me into my next questions, which is fabulous. So that's my understanding is the county, that you receive the funding, and then actual services, various organizations come and apply for the different, and then you take, the executive director leading that, and the board determining which ones would be chosen.
that's where I think as I envision this, one of the phrases I like in medicine, it's always incredibly difficult getting docs aligned with things and everybody, but herding the 10 cats that are going to be up here helping us look at all of these, what I envision, that we're going to have a lot of people, hopefully, people, organizations, other entities that are making applications, every one of them worthwhile, but noting that we don't have the funding. And even if we have the funding, the idea of going after, again, the herding the cats, getting more and more disorganized as this thing goes out. And so I think an executive director who also has some leadership skills is going to help
sure.
pull us together. As you've alluded to already, this is the first time
Yeah.
any of us have done anything
Sure.
like this. And so there's going to be a need on the part of this individual to be somebody who quietly and assertively can do some collaborative building and things, forming of coalitions and that type of thing as we go out to try to meet these community needs,
Right.
prioritize the community needs, and start addressing them.
Excellent. And so when I had done my research, I mean, obviously different children's councils, children's trusts have different focuses. You know, I mean, obviously they're all different children's services, but, you know, some have focused in on, you know, early childhood, some have focused in on child abuse, some have focused in on, you know, interventions and things like, so I found those, you know, to be a little bit different with each one. What I had found with this one, some of the things that had been identified were for the Escambia County, and just curious, were those just kind of thoughts and direction, or has the trust already kind of been established saying these are kind of the areas that we feel the county needs? Are you looking for the direction of that? And what I found was like child hunger, gang intervention, drug and suicide prevention, parent involvement, and mentoring.
We're in the process of moving in that direction. We had identified 3 buckets, but
Okay.
we're working with someone right now to help us fine tune that. But what somebody needs to know is that, you know, we're working toward ready children, ready youth, ready families. I mean, you know, and how that works.
Okay.
You know, so that we're
Well, yeah,
working together
We're
to
working together.
improve the children's lives.
And we have to, maybe I've got a but we have to have a needs assessment for our.
Perfect.
So-
Yep.
And so, you know, the person can't come in and tell us, well, I want to do X, Y, Z. That's not gonna fly. They have to be able to focus on what's needs in Escambia County and work with us and see what, you know.
Right.
And they're going to have to have good evaluation skills, because we're going to have to set metrics, and we're going to
Absolutely.
have to be able to evaluate whether the programs that are put into place are actually making a difference, so.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, great. So we are, even to your point, a little bit further into the infant stages. I didn't know, again, like I said, if anything had already been kind of designated. Awesome, well, that's great.
It's got to be, and we've said it's got to be a program that's not already being funded, and it's
Yeah.
got to be something new and, I guess, innovative. But even watching the county commission meetings, the budget hearings, people would come up and they say, well, isn't this something for the trust? Like, they're going to pass off what the county's giving them to us, and that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, the statute's clear that it has to be, I need to read the statute per se, I didn't read the book, but it's not just funding the same old, same old. You have the
Right,
statute.
it could be an organization that has been funded from something else, but it's got to be a program that has not already been in existence.
Well, it can be, no, it can be in existence.
Expand
It
it.
can
Yeah,
expand
yes.
the finance of
But
it,
it has to have-
expand the program. I'm gonna read it for you exactly what it says, because it's not. It can
Two
be in
attorneys.
existence,
Yeah,
but it was toward the end.
yeah. It can, you're right, it can be,
right.
like,
It is the intent of the legislature
Yeah.
that funds collected pursuant to the provisions of this section shall be used to support improvements in children's services, and that such funds shall not be used as a substitute for existing resources or for resources that would otherwise be available for children's services. So it can't be a substitute for existing. So we can't use the money again for Weiss Elementary that's already being used as a substitute or for resources that would otherwise be available. So it's got to be, you know, we can use the money for another school like Weiss does, but it can't be doing the same exact thing at Weiss.
All right, so this is wonderful, thank you so much, because it gives me some nice ideas of, you know, the vision and the mission and, you know, kind of where y'all are slowly moving towards. So let's kind of talk about, and I think everybody, you know, we've already mentioned a few things as well, but what do we see as our wish list, so to speak, or our ideal candidate? And so want to talk anywhere from Education, we spoke just a little bit about, they need to be somebody who's been a part of something pretty much from the ground up, because that's where they're starting versus something where they're coming in, even from a thriving organization, just really understanding that, this is going to be, extremely hands-on. So tell me a little bit about, some of the things, you certainly want a business and a servant leader. I think that's extremely important. Somebody's got the experience with budgeting, strategic planning. You answered the question a bit ago about grants and additional fundings. Obviously, they're going to have to know be responsible for the staff management, because, this is not going to be a one person. That was kind of why I asked about the admin fee initially, or percentage, simply because they're going to have to build off of that to be able to run the organization. And then obviously, a strong community outreach, and then, definitely building community relationships, and then obviously working directly with boards. They need to be familiar with that as well, too. So those are some kind of things that I've identified. I think, a lot of them are just leader things, in any organization as well, too. I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts, on what you're thinking that we might add to that as well.
This
Does
is,
she have a copy of the job description that we?
I only had, David, I thought I gave you one of these. This is the only thing I had.
Did we approve it, or did we just have it for information? Because this one is the one that has the Escambia County in it, the personnel committee. Didn't we do something with this at the personnel committee?
No, we talked about things, but we had it never, like, we want 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, we want a master's, we want this, and
Wanna see that?
we never finalized or voted on anything.
And that's kind of what I was kind of
Did
thinking
you
we
write
could.
this?
No.
Who
one
wrote
of
this?
the kind of
write
really
this, Caroline?
baseline stating the obvious, is we've had it brought up in our meetings among the 10, is in light of the community needs and who we anticipate serving, is we need to have people of color, minority representation, et cetera, among the candidates brought in. We feel certain that you
It's
all
good when
will
we come
do
back.
that. The other entity that we had looked at, I guess, perhaps made a more apparent inclusion of that in their material that they presented. And that was brought up by a number of the board members as being something of great relevance and need.
Absolutely.
And so that was part of the reason that led to discussion between you all and the other respondents. So that, and we felt that was, all of us, I think, felt those were valid concerns and entities.
absolutely.
Know that you all will be doing that anyway, but just, as I say, maybe stating the obvious there, but want that in as some of the very basic foundational things, is that we are able to look to everyone. I was thinking this as I'm coming in, I'm not here as me, as we got our name tag, and appreciate that. I'm here representing, and all of us are, representing
Absolutely.
the citizens of the county and their needs. They're the ones funding this, et cetera, et cetera. And so we need to be able to respond to them. At least one of our board members has brought up that she needs to be able to go look her grandma straight in the face and say, yes, this is what we've done, we've talked about, we've thought about, or whatever. And so with that kind of consideration in mind, and knowing that we need to answer to not only hers, but lots of grandmamas and others in the area, that we want that to be a key listing there. And
Absolutely, and, I've got that a little bit further down, but we can talk about that, is we will cast a wide net, and that is the goal, is to, reach as many people as we possibly can with our postings and our outreach, in, within the community as well, too, to encourage as many people, of all diversities to apply for this opportunity and to, be a part and bring their skills and their talents and their gifts forward, for consideration. So that's our goal, is to bring this, ultimately at the end of the day, that's what we do, is bring it forward, and then you as a group will decide, who is the best, candidate and fit for this opportunity. But we absolutely want to cast the widest net possible to reach everyone. So we talked a little bit about, and perhaps maybe if you need to go through that job description or whatever, and that's fine. I was looking at like a minimum years of experience. My recommendation would be no less than 8, 8 to 10, I would think.
We had 5+ on this one.
And what?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
what?
that's
Minimum
part-
and what?
We had a
Well-
discussion between 5 and 10.
This came out of a discussion we had in our committee
Yeah.
meeting. That's what I'm trying to think too, that we
Yeah.
we kind of came up
Because
with
we
this.
originally were saying over 10, and then there were people that thought that might be too narrow. So I'm going with you.
I say.
Well,
10,
8
8.
minimum.
And I've seen that where educational, like a master's, might sell for 2 years of work experience, that kind of thing. Maybe
But this
that.
is, this is a big budget, they're gonna have to be in
Yeah.
front of the people, come to the county commissioners, speaking in public, they're gonna need to know how to relate to people and speak in
Yeah.
public speaking.
Yeah, that-
Absolutely.
all of that stuff is in here, so I don't know where this came from.
It
But anyway,
was, though. I think we debated this but I don't think we brought it,
Our minutes from our last meetings ever show.
well, it's
Well-
early on prior personnel committee.
Yeah,
We kind of
yeah.
went over what we were looking
We
for.
did.
yeah, that's why I wondered if this was, maybe before Emily, who was there that may have put this together for us, but, here it's got education background, required undergraduate bachelor's degree from a 4-year accredited college or university, proven continuous learning experiences 5 or more years within the areas of strategic and organizational leadership and management, collaborative and problem-solving dynamics, change management, and other topics relevant to the role, preferred master's or PhD.
Well, and I think the big thing to remember too is that what we're doing is we're creating the ideal candidate, right? I mean, that's the thing. All different types of people are going to apply for this position. And we might get somebody who comes in that has 5 years of worth of experience, but maybe they have a background in something else as well too, that's allowed them to have some of those skills, and that's fine.
Well,
We
we
can
do
always
that
say
in-
preferred,
Yeah.
but the thing is that, I mean, you're going to ultimately, end of the day, and I can tell you so many times and just over my career where we've presented somebody, I'm like, just take a look at this person, or just take a look. And they'll say, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. This person's bringing this in. That wasn't even something I'd thought about that would be really good for this opportunity. So that's what all the discussions and the interviews and everything's going to bring forth. And sometimes you're surprised at the candidate at the end because you think you want one thing, but then as you've gone through the process, you're like, oh my gosh, we've identified all these wonderful things that this person can move forward with and bring to us, and it's the person we should move forward with.
Well, we do that in the education arena.
Yeah.
You'll say preferred,
Yeah.
but there's also usually in the job description, X years in something will qualify as a,
Right,
Yeah.
right, absolutely, definitely, but just trying to get an idea, so when we are looking for people, and again, as you go through this, and I mean, you've all been in hiring, positions for your own companies and things like that as well, we'll see, we'll be able to look at the experience that they're bringing and know where we can offer that balance, so. All right, great. So that'd be wonderful if you think that that's going to end up being a
Well,
lot of it. I mean, that would be great information.
I don't mind sharing this with you. I didn't create it, so somebody here did.
Well, here's the thing, though.
You can write
When we
draft
put this,
across it or something.
when we put it all
I think
together,
I have it on my,
because what my plan is to do is to kind of take my notes from this. All I have is this here, and I can use this. When I looked at some of the other trusts, when they had gone out there and done their solicitation for candidates for this type of position, they didn't have a very, very detailed job description, like a lot of times what you would see when you would go out for a job board or you personally were applying for a position. And I think that's okay because of the infant stages that this one is in. It's just really wanting to hit those highlights and those top qualities that are so important. So what I can do is I can, draft something up based on this. And again, as you're talking to these people and things like that, we're going to learn a lot more as well.
One of the things, as you look at the other children's trust and service centers, and some of them have histories of 20-plus years in existence.
Right.
As well as some of them, I'm thinking of one, at least down in the South Florida area, has a budget over $100 million a year. So
Yeah.
they're,
Yes.
as you look through everything from their makeup and whatever, those may be some long-term and dreams and whatever for us, but we may gain, in addition to those, make sure you also look at the Alachua counties and some of those.
Well, that's actually one of the ones I was focusing, and then I've been obviously following the Leon County,
Yes.
their process and reviewing all of their documents and everything that's been coming through and watching their process as well too, since they are similar to us.
Did Walter say at our last board meeting that he was no longer on the Leon County board, that he had passed that on to someone? That's what I was thinking.
He has somebody that will be coming our way.
To our-
pretty soon.
yes.
It's actually a neighbor.
He is the, one of our 10 board members is the DCF individual, and he is on the Leon County and our boards. And he's been driving the 3 hours back and forth.
Oh, my
each way and made it up
goodness.
Until now. But he was saying, disclosed at our last meeting, that he is no longer on the board at Leon County. And he is
Okay.
the one individual that is empowered legislatively to choose a designee to be in his place.
Oh, wow,
And
okay.
the designee he had here, I don't know if y'all heard the details of that, was literally here in Pensacola, getting moved in, was gonna be one of the DCF area directors, got COVID and died
Oh, that's
during the
horrible.
week that she was supposed to be coming on our board.
Oh, my
today.
gosh, that's so terrible.
Yeah, so get your shots, everyone.
Yes. Oh, it's so bad. It's so tough. Yeah, and so just a couple of things, and then I've got one other question. So salary, I had 100 to 125,
That's what
That-
we have budgeted, yeah.
right? Okay, good. And then, are they eligible for state benefits, medical, dental, all that?
Meredith, that'd be the question. The employees eligible for state benefits,
They're not.
Okay. All right, so,
they have, we have to get our own benefit, which is why we haven't done that.
We haven't done it
Except we
Okay.
haven't, hold on, we've done,
because we don't have.
we've done insurance, we've done accounting, we've done banking, we've done legal, now we're doing that. And so, but we haven't done benefits yet.
but there will be
So
benefits
there will
offered.
be benefits.
That, and that's
Do we-
all
was
I
gonna
need
say,
to
Do we
share.
envision that as part of that 125, 100, 125, whatever that we have budgeted? Or that is additional to?
And I think it's negotiable depending on the quality of the person.
And I could see getting
applies.
someone who has a spouse, whose spouse is getting benefits through their employment that may not need health or whatever it
Right,
might be
but
from
if
us.
we have other employees.
That's,
that have
yeah,
their-
yeah, if you started
program
that.
managers and-
Okay, but the salary would be 100 to 1, and that's
Plus,
not,
yeah, and then-
plus benefits. Okay, that's what I thought. And now, some of the other organizations showed that this was part of the state retirement plan. Is that correct or no?
That's what they couldn't be part of the state retirement.
They cannot.
That can,
Okay,
I was told they could not be.
okay. All righty, that's fine. Now, as we cast our wide net and we're out looking for candidates, I mean, obviously our postings are not just going to be in the Pensacola area. Would there be a relocation that could be offered to the right candidate for the opportunity? Like either a stipend or a percentage or something like that,
I mean-
potentially?
what did you say?
So there would not be anything to prohibit that.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I
Let me
I
go
wanted
back
to
and
hear that
ask.
from you, because, I mean, you know, that, I think that's, what we had to do as a school board is we set a budget.
Mhm.
You know, and so that we had you know, we weren't gonna pay the entire cost, but we would pay a percentage of their relocation.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. Well, and a lot of clients
It would
that are,
depend on how much. I mean, because as somebody pointed out when we were talking about this at the school district, is that if you gave X number of dollars for the cost of the move, it could take X number of dollars for the cost of the move. And instead of, you know, just saying, we'll pay up to a certain amount for relocation.
well, most of the clients I work with will just be like, it's $5,000 or it's $7,500 or
that's what we-
$10,000.
that we
And it's
did
just making sure the
$7,500.
candidate understands that is taxable, you know, always sharing that as well too. But that's what bulk, because then we don't have to, the receipts
Right.
and all that
That's
kind of
exactly what
stuff.
it is.
It's
If
just,
it-
it's just easier and cleaner. And then if they want to use a moving company or a U-Haul, you know, it's, you know, either way.
Carolyn, can I go back on a question that you all have just responded to in regards to retirement? And you were saying, I think I understood you to say that you had seen that several of the entities allowed.
I had saw, and I'd have to figure out.
You said we can't. I see somebody potentially applying, and one of the early things they're gonna do in this day and age is go to the internet. And so if they're gonna see that some agencies or some of them are applying it, at the very least, we've got to be able to explain why. Why is it that if you go to County X, you can get it? Okay.
It's per county?
I was told by the Escambia County office that nobody else could be on the county retirement.
Is that the whole thing that been argued about?
Well, they are county. We are an independent.
It may be
And so-
though that, it may be that we
can go through the
can't go
state.
through Escambia County, but you can go to the Florida retirement system
And-
straight
and
to
I have not-
FRS.
I
And
have
I've
not done
looked
that.
at that.
Right.
Okay.
No.
Thinking retirement, somebody told me that they've always got 10 years on the clock or whatever, that they're gonna be wheels spinning and thinking.
It's definitely a consideration in terms of a package, but again, how much are we going to fund?
And,
You know, we put it.
and we can get Meredith to look at it because the FRS rules have changed significantly over the last few years. And, you know, to see whether it's even more beneficial to be in the FRS system or just to set up an annuity plan and those kind of things.
Okay, all right, because that's a huge selling point. Saying
Yes,
if it is,
exactly,
if it
yes.
is available, I mean, and it may completely not be, but that's a big one, especially to, you know, your point of if they're already in the system.
Does Leon County do it? Do you know?
I can't remember. I looked at quite a few, to be honest with you, and so I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I can go back and look through it.
And they have not finalized.
So it's, a lot of it's negotiation at the end. I saw somebody has an automobile. Yeah, I mean, you just don't know what direction it might go.
Sure.
But
Sure. No, and that's fine. And so that brings me kind of to another question, kind of wrapped around this opportunity. I know in the proposal you had mentioned, you know, wanting somebody with like, you know, government or municipal recruiting experience, things like that. What are your thoughts? I mean, where I see the largest group for the most part, and again, I mean, there's certainly organizations within the governmental system that are similar to this, but you really see a lot more out in the nonprofit world, right? So I think that with our candidates are going to, they certainly can come from, you know, one to the other. How do you see this?
I see it as nonprofit, business nonprofit.
I do too, but they need to demonstrate awareness of sunshine law
Of course.
and public records law.
And be able to read a statute, like their statute that they're governed by, and know that when we have to do reports a month, you know, we do reports so often. Well, I'm not.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. I just said that they need to be able to read the statute and be able to understand when they have reports due and just be aware of. And this is, I mean, it's a little bit of a lobbying too, so they need to be able to work with legislators and understand how government works, so. But I think it's more of a nonprofit job.
Okay, and that's fine. Again, we're gonna cast the net, and, you know, anybody and everybody can apply, but just kind of as we're going through, and look, sorry, as we're going through and, looking through our candidates and things like that, I kind of felt like that's where it would be. All right, great. Okay, so what obligation do you have as the board and the personal community to promote this within our own community? Since this is something within, I mean, is there anything that it, meaning like, does it have to have a newspaper announcement? Is there a period of time that it must be posted?
No, we have there's nothing.
Okay.
We have no policies yet.
There's no policies, there's nothing in the statute, so.
Okay, all right. Mark that up. Just because I've seen so much with like the Tallahassee one, there's been a ton of stuff in the newspaper about it, and I didn't know if, you know, so I wasn't sure.
Complying with the sunshine law again.
And absolutely, and
But
that's,
we could reach out, send out a press release that we are in the process so that it gets picked up by the news media.
yeah, and I think that's great, because one, I think that, you know, sometimes things pass, and this can be in anything, and you're like, where did that go? And I think keeping the public informed and knowing that you're going through the process. Also, we'll get a link, we can embed that in, especially for like the P&J and stuff like that online, and the WER, we could have that, and then the person actually could click that link and immediately go to.
And we do have a newsletter that's been going out, and that's it can be in the
Great.
newsletter, because that goes out to interested parties. And we don't know whether that's mostly local, or whether, as some of us are following other trusts and
Sure.
councils, maybe others are following us, and there might be somebody out there that would love to come relocate to Pensacola.
Absolutely. And that brings up a great point, because this is such a great time, I think, for this position, because people through the last year, it's been a struggle, right? And people are reevaluating priorities and making changes in their lives. And I think we're seeing so much of that influx into Florida, and especially into our own area, that I think that's going to be, you've got a great salary, we're going to have benefits. It's a wonderful opportunity to serve a community. I mean, I think it's going to be very attractive even to people outside our area.
And we have a beach.
Yes, we do. A very beautiful one at that. And a fabulous downtown. And then I'm having, our legal department will be drafting up, just some stuff to make sure that we have that on the recruiting brochure, because that's what my plan is, to take this information back. I'm going to get with my marketing department. We're going to draft up a really nice recruiting brochure that gives some information about the area, that's going to, talk about the plugs of the bonuses of living in this community, along with information about the Children's Trust. It'll include the job description as well, what we're looking for, and I'll run that by you, obviously.
And then will you tell us exactly where you're posting it?
Basically, what that one's going to be is that one is going to be a brochure, right? So that's going to be where, like, we would send it to somebody, or you'll have a copy of it. You know somebody who's interested. That's going to be something that we will put out
And
simply
that's
because
electronic. That's an
Yes, ma'am.
electronic brochure.
Because it's going to be, it's a marketing piece, right? With regard to posting, which actually was my next section. No, y'all are fabulous. Y'all are just moving right through it. Here's kind of where I was looking at posting the position. Okay, so obviously we have our own website that we will be promoted there, and we'll have a link. That would be the link. I'm trying to drive as much traffic into one place, just to kind of make it easier, and also just to keep it all in one place. We obviously can put it out on LinkedIn, which is, global as well too. Indeed, that is the big one really along through this area, and kind of southeast area. And it's not limited. Obviously, the job is posted and the same thing with LinkedIn. Obviously, jobs are posted as being in here, but I mean, you and I can go look at jobs in in Tallahassee or Texas or California. You can find them all there. So it's going to reach that really broad group as well too. Obviously, we have a strong following on our Facebook and Instagram pages as well. So our company will be promoting this, and we have clients in 48 states. So, I mean, we have a whole bunch of people that are going to be, that are already a part, that receive a lot of our listings as well too. So that'll be promoted there. I looked at diversity.com as well too. That's another one that's going to push out, that's going to reach a ton of candidates. It's also something that's going to reach into all types of areas, and that will hit, as you were mentioning as well too, and an opportunity in, someone might be in another state to be able to see it as well, to promote that. I also had looked at, I know that there was the National Forum for Black Public Administrators as well too, and that was kind of one of the questions, and so I have kind of a couple options there. That one is straight government city type positions. And so I looked on there, actually went through all of the jobs they had posted, and they're mostly like city planners, parks and rec, and things like that. And I wondered, would this be best there? My alternative suggestion, which I thought was a good place, was blackjobspot.com, which also links us to hispanicjobs.com. And we post it there. And then that mixes it in with all types of opportunities. And the reason I like that too is kind of to what we were speaking about before, is that perhaps maybe someone has been in one area and then they've been in a service type opportunity, but maybe they're just like, oh, well, let me just see what's out there. And maybe they were looking at a corporate job. Oh, wait a minute, here's something. So it just mixes all different types of jobs together. So I think you're gonna get just a lot of candidates from different areas, because it's mixing it in with tons of opportunities instead of just government. But that's my thought.
I like that.
I think as Stephanie says, that while we're going to have consideration, awareness, and knowledge about governmental operations, I see this more as a nonprofit sphere and everything, and I would be afraid that if you got it advertised in that almost strictly governmental type thing, that's gonna send a message with it. And the people we're gonna get from that maybe aren't gonna have a fit for what we're really looking for. So I think that's an excellent idea.
Okay, good, good. Like I said, I just felt like it was a way to reach the most people, right? So awesome.
Wait, let me add one more. And I
Yes, ma'am.
sent you this.
This was from Kim Krupa with the chief, who had been so instrumental. Philanthropynewsdigest.org. Anyway, that's just another one that I don't know, maybe if that's where she had been recruited
You
from.
emailed me that?
I did.
Okay,
I
okay, so
did,
it's
yes.
okay. Okay, I'll check
I
that
wanted
one.
to get
I'm
that
not
on
familiar with
record.
that.
Philanthropy Newsdigest.org.
Digest, okay. Yes, so we can definitely get it on there. The other thing too, I was looking at the Gulf Coast Minority Chamber. I didn't see anything on their website where they posted jobs, but I thought perhaps maybe they could promote the opportunity. I don't know. I know that Mr. Wire, is that how you say his last name? I watched him when they were actually doing a lot of promotion. He was really a big advocate for this, so I figured he might be someone who'd be willing to help us out promote this. So, because I do think it's very important that while we are casting these wide nets out into other places, I think it's important to really hone a lot into our own community, because we've got some great people here as well, that might want to have the opportunity to present themselves. And so I don't want to lose that, the community sense, when reaching out into other areas too. So there's that.
Timeline, so you're gonna go back and do the brochure.
There's that, and then I'll mention one more thing. No, you're okay, is Sal Vergara. He is a colleague of mine. He is out of Texas, and he leads all of our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. He works with Fortune 500 companies. He works with businesses of all sizes. That he has a massive network. So I'm going to meet with him and see about getting him to promote this out on his website and through his connections too. So, I think where we're going to push out here, you're going to have a tremendous outreach with it.
Yeah.
So,
We're gonna have a lot of applicants.
Well,
Yeah.
but I think it's important to our community
Yes.
that they see that we have a huge amount of contacts out
Yes.
there. so
Yes.
That they know we're not just searching locally.
right, exactly.
Will you talk some about how you go to, I think you called it passive, or
sure.
not passive, yeah.
Yep,
Yeah,
you
The
got
ones
it.
who may not be
Yeah.
looking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what we do is take all the information that I got from you today. We pull that together, and then I have various subscriptions and resources that I use, and then I go in and I can put all these parameters in there, and then I go through and we review bios and things like that, and then we send, and that will follow actually with your question. Information, hey, love to talk to you, have some great experience, we have this great new opportunity in Escambia County, and that's when I would attach the brochure to that and send that out. That would give all that information about, and then of course a link to the website so they could see as well too. If they're interested, then I would sit down and interview them and, share more information. If they're interested further, they would send their resume, and then at that point, they would become one of our applicants.
This
So-
may be something that you all do as well already, but again, as I'm sitting here thinking of this whole process, it goes against Visit Pensacola and Escambia County, et cetera. But in this particular instance, I think we need to highlight needs that exist within Escambia County and opportunities that exist. Or somebody is going to look at this and go, this looks beautiful, what the heck do they need this for? And so I do, and that's going to take a little finesse on how to do that, but to show that there is a need for this organization,
Right.
this entity, and the executive director is going to be there. And as I say, I don't know, opening a big glossy trifold for Visit Pensacola or whatever is
Right.
going to be like, wow, you see nothing but the beach and the this and the that, and everything is roses, et cetera. I don't think that's what we want. We kind of wish that was the case, but if it were, we wouldn't be needing this entity and the individual to lead it. And so that's something that you all are going to need to tease out on how to put that in there. And whether that goes out in the first way, I don't want to scare people off.
No,
But on
but
the other hand, we need to be telling them,
But
Here's the need that exists.
I am presuming that that kind of information goes out. You know, when we had to do the brochure for the superintendent search, we had to say the nice things about us, but we also had to explain, you know, that it would not be a cakewalk. So,
Right, no, and that's it. I mean, we're gonna mention some of the things that, like we talked about today, the services and all that are going to be needed, and that what this person would be doing, and the community, the outreach, I mean, and getting in, you know, to some of the specifics, you know.
If you want like a copy of the needs assessment that we have.
Oh,
or the
great.
thing- I see Shannon just walked in, so she has the SCI dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
So you can include that shows for 48%.
That would be incredible.
It's our website.
Okay, great. Yes, no, absolutely. I mean, we would definitely be, you know, talking about, because they're also gonna wanna know, what am I gonna be doing in this job, right? Yeah, so 100%. But I totally understand what your point is as well, too. Yeah. So, awesome. This is great. All right, let me get mine. And I think we're at, yep. That's where I think I was. My next thing on my list is, yep, I think we got that. So, where's my page? Here it is. If I don't write it down, I forget it. Okay, so we talked about that.
We're already on week 1.
Exactly. All right, so all right, well, let's just start here. So obviously, this is what we kind of put out as a tentative, a process and everything. I mean, this is the goal to finish it up, but it's like anything else, and we're also out in a world of a talent shortage as well, too. I don't think we're gonna have that problem with this position. I think this is just something so attractive. I think we're gonna have a lot of people, very good candidates interested in it. But, just understand that things are going to ebb and flow just a little bit, and it's also going to a lot of your schedules as well too, right? Of what often we want to meet. So yes, we are in week 1. I'm going to take all this information back. I'm going to put it all together, and my next step with you is by next week I will have a draft marketing brochure with the information put together to say, okay, this is how we start.
And then you'll send that to Carolyn to let Carolyn approve, because we can't approve it without having another meeting, so.
And I think that's part of what we've got to talk about.
Okay.
Kind of walk through the steps, and then it's like, how often do you all want to meet?
Right.
Yes,
And
that was one of my
things
questions,
that-
yes.
Because it's got to be publicly noticed,
Yeah.
and they can't talk amongst themselves, and that
can the
kind of thing.
executive committee make those decisions?
But then that means Dr. Smith and Tori and I have to get together too and public notice it. That's fine. Or like Carolyn approve the marketing budget, the marketing brochure.
There you are, the executive.
That happens to have a marketing background.
You're the personnel chair.
You can't disseminate that, and we respond to you with comments? Then
Can't they do that? Can they
Can you
individually?
can send information to individual board members and they can respond back only to you.
And then I
Okay.
can compile.
Right.
that.
Okay.
Well, you
But without
can't
attribution.
compile and like redistribute to them each other's comments.
No, but I'm
You
saying,
can.
You can
compile
compile
it,
it.
but without attributions.
And then send that to Wendy.
Like we
Sure,
say.
you communicate back to Wendy.
Yeah,
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, great.
these are comments.
Okay, excellent. All right, wonderful. So that will be good. So
I have a question on that. Do you want to include the entire trust board in that communication with the brochure instead of just the personnel committee?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
okay, and to follow up to, just want to go back real quick, with all of our postings, obviously the brochure is not going to be the posting, right? It's going to be more just the information about the trust. It's going to be, information about the position as well, too. I know that due to the Sunshine Law, all applicants are now part of public record. And so my legal team is going to put a statement, because that needs to be front and absolute at the very top about that as well, too. So wanting to make sure that that will be on all the postings that we place. And I'll send Carolyn, and she can share with y'all links once everything's up, so you can see every place that it's out there.
And do you, that's probably the next question, but when you get them back, when people start applying, you take their names off and just put 1, 2, 3, like, because they may be working somewhere else and they don't want their name on a Escambia County trust that they're applying, they're looking
And, and that's a great question, because that was something when I was doing my research, and I noticed with Leon County, like they had the press release in the newspaper that had the 8 top candidates, little bios about everywhere they worked and everything like that. And that was, of course, the first thing I thought of. And so I didn't know how y'all handle that.
Yeah, well, we actually put their names on there if they, I mean, it was candidate one with a name, because as we moved through the interview process, we didn't use the name so much, but what was I gonna say? You asked the question about whether
Redacting the name.
redacting the names and putting it all out there. And Meredith can speak to this as the attorney. What we had to do is, we had a search team, and the search team would receive the applications instead of it going to our HR department, which created issues if you had an internal candidate. So we had it go to the search team. The search team's responsibility was only to make sure the entire application was there and to do the initial vetting of whether they met the minimum requirements. Once they did that, if there was a page missing, they would reach out to the person and say, we didn't get page 9 of your resume or whatever. And then as soon as it was received, we put a timeline that they would send them whatever they had received that week to us on Monday. But they weren't sending I got 2 on Tuesday and 3 on Wednesday, and weeks long. So I don't know what our requirement would be, but I mean, that's what we had been told our requirement was in order to be in the sunshine. Everybody that applied need to know that their application had been seen by us.
Yeah, so the documents, the applications, the individuals' names, those are going to be public record. It's not social. The socials are confidential. Anything else is public record and can be released. There's no requirement that you do release it. So if you decided to number or take some other method on the preliminary, rounds, that would be completely within your discretion. But if someone came in with a public records request and said, I want a copy of everything that was submitted, then everything that was submitted with confidential information redacted would be released. So those names are going to ultimately be out there.
Right.
So it's
Just not necessarily through the process.
it would be up to you and the board to determine that process.
And one thing to address, I knew what the other thing that floated through my mind was. One thing that we found with the search for the superintendent, we had been told this, and it was in fact true, because of the issue that some people may be working somewhere else, you get the majority of your applications toward the end of the timeline that you have.
All right, great. All right,
So we're going to have to determine, I mean, I know you said, you asked us in the beginning, but I don't think you got an answer about how long we're going to keep it open, because we do need an end date.
no, 100%, and that was kind of what I was going, as we were moving through this. I mean, typically I would keep something over, 2 weeks to 4 weeks, I mean, to keep it open.
Can we evaluate after 2 weeks?
And exactly,
Yeah,
kind of see, because here's the thing, if you get, just say 150 applicants, and you've got, 50 or so ones that look like they're ready for at least, discussion and all like that, then you don't need to get another 300, right?
No, we don't yet. I mean, it'd be great to have 1,000, but
Sure,
we'd have to quit our daytime jobs.
exactly.
How many
So,
did Leon get?
160.
That's a lot. I mean,
And
that's
how
good.
long was there?
I could not find that. I looked
couldn't
as
find it
much.
either, and I was wondering if somebody had found it.
I could never find it because the posting had been removed on how long they had actually
And
posted
they
it out
didn't
there.
use me. They did it all.
They did it themselves,
Right.
Actually, I believe they ended up with a consultant.
Okay.
How
the process.
So let's just say we would look at posting initially for 2 weeks and then evaluate what we have there.
That sounds great.
Okay, so that's great.
The other needs I see, and I may be getting ahead of you.
It's
and
okay.
So my apologies.
No?
One, I love this, you all labeled it timeline, but really, as I said the other day, this is more of a process map. is I note that repeatedly you talk about Landrum will prepare for presentation to ECT. Landrum presents first round of this. ECT conducts initial phone screens, video interviews. ECT selects. Where does that mean we, as the or as the personnel committee, you as the chair of the personnel committee, the entire 10 people up here, which of these various ECT things are going to go to who? Because I'm throwing that out in their process as well as our process of defining. Can we come through here and say which of these are ECT personnel committee versus ECT denoting, implying the entire 10 people?
I would think as we get the resumes in and start narrowing down the focus, then I think the full board will be more involved in the beginning process.
That's usually where I've had
And
it
our
before.
personnel committees are open to any member on the board
Right.
trust. So, I mean, they can come, we could have had all 10 people here today if they'd wanted to come, if they had, you know, if they not wanted, if they'd wanted to come.
Chose to
So
come, right.
it's open to anyone and everyone, so.
But I think Rex's comment is that we need, and you may be the person to direct us in this, you know, when you get our dates, you know, what is the decision that needs to be
Yeah.
made and what, by what date? And because, you know, we do need, I mean, because ultimately the entire
The whole
board
board's gonna vote
is
on
going to
this.
vote on
Yeah.
this. And this may be a conversation that we should have had with them. You know, how involved does everybody want to be? I mean, realistically, we're missing 2 members of this committee? 3, which would have made it 7 out of the 10.
So, I mean, I think, you know, just what you said, that the farther along we get, like, when we
Yeah.
get down to 5 or 6, then the whole board might want to be a part of that. We can ask the board meetings, where do you want, you know?
And the other question, as the school board worked through this, all of us were getting all applications for review. We had the Citizens Committee that did a vetting and sent us a certain number of, but at no point did the board say, I can't add somebody that wasn't sent forward by the Personnel Committee. You know, if we decide that we're going to be the recommending committee to the entire board, I want to be sure that we acknowledge that should we leave somebody off that somebody's passionate about, that they can
Right.
still add that person.
Well, I guess also is trying to look at the corollary of it, of us getting the work done is fine. But in your week 2 to 4, you have down here, Landrum will prepare a short list of top candidates for presentation to ECT. And what I guess I'm not wanting to happen, and should we publicly to our colleagues up here, make the idea that I could just see one of them coming along where we get that information, we make some decisions, and somebody up here at a board meeting down the road goes, wait a minute, I was waiting for that to be brought to the whole board, because on week 2 here, it says ECT. I'm part of ECT. I never heard about that.
Right.
And so we need, again, I think for the benefit of them, letting them know that we as the personnel committee have chosen, empowered, assumed, whatever, that this, and this is gonna be decided by the personnel committee. And if you wanna participate, come to those personnel committee meetings. Otherwise, we're not gonna wait for the next meeting of the entire board or whatever, or this will be taking months instead
Right,
of weeks. But I just don't want to get jumped on after the fact, with somebody going, I wasn't included in that.
Well, again, this may require us to have more, the board itself to have more meetings. And I think the sooner we create that timeline, the sooner we can get dates on calendars. Because I read this differently. As I read it, candidates will be pre-screened, yielding only highly qualified candidates for presentation to the ECT. I see that as the entire board. I don't see that as our committee. And how we work with it, you know, and that's after whatever timeline we have decided you get on. So you get 50 candidates. You will do pre-screening. You will send us however many that, whether we tell you how many or whether you just send us all of those that you feel are highly qualified.
Exactly.
And that's, I think these are the conversations that we as a personnel committee need to say.
And maybe you could send them like, okay, I mean, I would like to see all all of them, but you could like say, okay, these 20 met the minimum qualifications. These 10 exceeded the qualifications, and these 5, really exceed the qualifications.
Right.
So, if you have 2 hours, you can look through all 50. If I have, 10 minutes, I can look through, or not, what I'm saying. I could pick and choose, but I would like to see all of, no? I mean, is that
Well,
what
no,
you're-
I mean, we have, all of us are members of the
Yeah.
public and we'll see them all.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I was hearing Rex say that he thought, he wanted to be sure that when it said ECT, it meant the entire board and not just the personnel
Or
committee.
the
You
other way
wanted-
around.
Or the
I
other way,
want the
you wanted
entire
us to make
board
that
to
decision.
be clear,
Yes.
rather than them
Yeah.
raise a hand, as
Right.
we've already had
Right.
happen
Right.
in
Right.
other issues, that raise
Right.
up and go, I wasn't aware of that.
Right.
If I'd have
Right.
known such and such, I wouldn't have voted that way,
Right.
et cetera.
Yeah. And-
And I
and
don't want that coming back
that's
to
why
us
we
and
have
somebody
to-
holding this and going, it says here ECT, I'm ECT, I didn't have a role in
And I
that.
think probably the best thing to do is once we get to that point where we've received all the resumes in, and I'm giving all it, let's sit down and say, okay, on October 30th, we're going to have a meeting, and this is going to, and then, it can really just, and then that,
We can
the
just
big
call
catch
it-
with that
yeah.
one is going to be, is to your point, there's going to be a lot more involvement, and we're going to have to stick to that timeline, or
The
it's going to
prob-
go.
yeah, we
And
can
we're
call
going
us-
into the holidays,
Yeah.
and
We can call a special board meeting. If we do that, then we have to have quorum, which would be 6 out of 10 to vote on anything. If we call personnel committee, we have to have, I'd prefer to have 6 out of 10 if we're voting on, more important things. We can just call a special board meeting
With enough notice.
with enough notice.
Well, I don't think there's gonna be a whole lot, right? Because we're gonna have the initial grouping, and then you're gonna discuss those, and then we're gonna set the interviews with the ones that you wanna move forward with, right? And so then we'll have that, and then we'll have the next one, which would be probably getting down to your, your last few candidates. And then at that point, I guess, there could be the potential that you wanna talk to people again, but, you wanna kind of limit the interview process as much as you can. I've had, boards present questions before and have the.
Video?
I'm sorry?
Have you had them present their answers by video?
Well, and that's something we definitely could look at doing, but even just answering all the questions, and then they went into their interview, and then they discussed why they chose those answers as well too. Definitely can have video presentations, in-person presentations, giving them a topic, how would you handle this? What would your first steps be on day one should you be selected for this opportunity?
Carolyn, I guess one of the ways to
Write that
address
down.
this may perhaps be to whatever we decide, and you two in particular are going to be ECT Personnel Committee, that we just make sure that that's listed on the organizational calendar. And then if people want to come, to
Yeah,
your
that's
point,
what
they
we-
can come.
yeah.
If they don't come and they raise the point later, then we can at least say, hey, look on the calendar. It's right
Like-
there. If you had a question, you could have shown up.
Like, for example, at our last board meeting, I said we're meeting with Landrum, and I told
Yes.
them the date, I told them the time, I
Yes,
told them
that's
the
right.
location. So, everyone has a
That
chance
type of thing.
to come
yes.
to everything, so. And we're not gonna do anything.
Where other organizations have, as that final part, is a presentation by them, where it's not just in response to questions, but they're told what the presentation should be about, and then see them make a presentation. It tells you a lot. And whether that's tied in with an interview or, I don't know.
I think
but-
that's a great last step, right? Because you're gonna have gone through all of your questions and the types of things like, okay, this person's qualified, okay, now let me see you on your feet. Because, think about it for this, I'm sorry. I'm so not used to that. I need to get one by my computer, I feel more important, but even especially since I work remote, nobody else is there. But yeah, I think that's great because their ground floor, they're gonna have to be good on their feet. They're gonna have to present well. They're gonna have to be that motivating, encouraging person, right? Because this isn't in place yet. So I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Let's make sure we have that timeline that Rex is talking about, and which group, like who's doing that initial screening? Is that Landrum based on some minimum qualifications? Or is that this group?
Well,
First, we need to get the job description written.
right, yeah.
That's the first thing.
And that's what,
That's what
Right.
you're gonna do first.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. That's gonna be, y'all will approve that. Then what we'll do is we'll get it broadcast out. I'll send y'all the link so you know where it is. So we'll have that, and then we'll probably sit for a couple of weeks, right? You know, and then after a couple of weeks, and I say, okay, look, and I've gone through the resume, we got enough, we'll close it down. We'll go through, we'll call through, we'll organize all the resumes. And remember, you're gonna get people who, I mean, it's like any other job posting, right? That are not qualified, nothing wrong, just they're not in the field or industry that you're in. So, I mean, those will be, you know, moved, and then we will put them in order. If you want to look at everybody that you feel like, I mean, that regardless if we feel like they really meet the requirements, and we can do that. It's kind of up to you, or do you really want to see, okay, this is, I mean, because like a normal search for me, that's kind of what we do. That's our job, is to call it down, right, and only present the candidates that meet the requirements, or we feel like would be able to move forward. But I mean, I can show you everybody. That's just kind of your call.
And just so you understand, things like Indeed, you literally can apply for 7 jobs with one click of your button.
Yeah.
You're going to get people who are not qualified, and that's where.
I don't want someone right out of college.
Well, I mean, and that's what I'm saying.
Right, but again, those minimum qualifications that, I think to decide that up front is helpful.
I can share that, you know, when you say you need someone with leadership experience, not our superintendent search, but another superintendent search, I had manager at McDonald's. Had the right leadership experience. So, I mean, you know, I just, there was one thing you said, though, about how you would cut it off after you decided you had enough. I don't think we can operate that way. I think you have to say,
Set a date.
this is a date, and that will be, and then you can evaluate, oh, we only got 3, so we're gonna have to reopen. But I don't think we can arbitrarily say, oh, wait, we got 50 by this
No, that's
date,
what I was talking
and
about,
then-
after 2 weeks. It would be
Okay,
it would be
okay, you're
a
gonna set
2
a
weeks.
specific date.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay.
We would say like after 2
I
weeks.
just didn't hear it that way.
Yeah, after 2 weeks, we would evaluate, see what we have. That would be our cutoff. And if we felt like we needed to go back in and get some more candidates, we could open it up for like another 2 weeks. Yes, ma'am, that's what I was saying. Sorry if I wasn't clear on that.
And just so you know, we meet, the board meets on the second Tuesday of each month.
In the morning,
No, 5:30,
okay.
during your class time.
Yeah, that's my only catch, is I do have a class at nights.
When it's necessary, we'll call a special board.
Well, can
Right.
we get the job description done so that it can be approved by the board, by the October meeting?
What day
That's the
is?
12th.
The 12th
It's-
of October?
Oh, yeah, I was
Yeah.
planning to get it to you by next week, which would be right in time for, because that would be the following week. Oh, absolutely.
On the agenda,
Right.
We'll approve it, and then once we get it approved, we'll tell them all the places that, or David can tell them, all the places that you said where we're gonna do it.
I can put all that in.
Okay, perfect.
I'll get it all together in just one spot.
And then he can just read it off, and then we'll approve that and, tell them it'll be posted for 2 weeks.
Well, based on our previous banking, they were not comfortable with 2 weeks. I mean,
The-
is that job
This,
interview
I think is
instead of 3?
different than a job, because,
I mean, that's only, I don't.
I mean, to apply for a job, basically you just put your resume and a cover letter, correct? I mean, I haven't applied for a job in a long time.
That was something I was
Yeah.
gonna ask.
For a request for quote, for solicitation is this huge on thing,
Much
so.
bigger, okay.
Well,
I mean, I don't necessarily, I wouldn't ask for a cover letter initially. You might, as applicants, if you thought you were gonna select, you could ask them to write a letter saying why they felt like they would be a good fit for the position or something like that.
I would recognize, I
And-
would like a cover letter.
that was the screening, one of the screening tools Leon used. They responded back to anybody who
Can they
applied
write?
and said, oh, send us this. And if they didn't send us this, then they knew it was just a robo
Yeah.
application. So,
I like to see
That
if they
is-
can write too, and put a complete sentence together.
absolutely, yes.
Yeah, because that is very telling. Can you see that there was a blue squiggly line under that?
No, that's totally fine, we can definitely add that, no problem at all. Okay, so I think that's the best thing right now, is that, let me take this back, let me put my information together, let me get that over to you next week. You can get it approved by the board, already know where we'll post it, I'll send everything, and then at that point, did you say you're thinking 3 weeks instead of 2? Or you, well, you can talk with the board about that too.
I mean, if you prefer 3, David, I
Well,
mean,
just from our, you're right about how long it takes, but I don't want to say it was out there too long, we didn't cast wide enough net, or just
But realistically, if we could do it for 3 weeks from the 12th, then we'd have an extra week before the board meeting to call down to that next level, screening and keep it moving forward. You think that's,
So, Mike, they're gonna ask us, so 3 weeks, you're gonna leave it open, you're gonna close it after 3 weeks, then you're going to take the 300 applicants that you have, let's say, you're going to cull it down and see who's qualified or not, like who has not McDonald's, not, leadership at different, being a head manager for McDonald's, I'm sure is challenging. I would not wanna do it, so I'm not, but I mean, who has leadership abilities in this type of job setting? You're gonna cull that down, you're gonna bring those 150 back to us on the November meeting?
I'm not sure what, I'm
They're
just
gonna
trying
ask
to
us
keep.
these questions, so
Yeah.
I just need to prepare.
Right.
Well, let's see, okay, so the 12th was the meeting, the following week would be the 18th, so you said, I need a calendar,
No,
sorry.
it's
No, I do too.
the next, but
Well, I'm
it's some,
looking at, for the posting perspective.
right, but
October 12th is
where
next
does the
meeting.
screening come in that Landrum will do, the background screening and all that? And how long does that take? I mean,
Well, what we'll have to do is, that would be really towards, closer to the end, because, I mean, you don't want to go through that.
Right, and
8
that's
to 10
where, some
candidates.
sense of a number. Is it when we're down to the top 20 that you start screening top 10?
I mean, usually it would be
background?
just the last 2, or 3. I mean, you really, because, I mean, that's a whole lot.
Right,
To have
exactly.
to do with, you don't want to do with a large number of people.
And what about even the reference checks and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff? So only the top
Yeah, it's
handful?
usually always when you do that, it's usually the last couple of candidates.
Okay.
but many of us, if we're getting the names, we'll be doing our own background check.
Right, if we're seeing it here on November the whatever at 5:30 and going through 150 resumes, that's not a good use of anyone's time.
Right.
So,
No, we need to be,
so I just we need to know what to tell them, David or us, or
yeah.
what's
How
going
many,
on
how
after
many do
October
you
the
want the whole board to review? Knowing that they will have the ability to look at everything, but the committee will, Landrum will send us, how many? 10, their top 10, and then either this committee can look at those 10 and determine that we're going to send the top 5, top 4. I mean, in the superintendent's search process, the search team said there is usually a gap. There'll be, these are excellent people, and then there's others that were excellent but not as excellent. And that it's kind of a natural gap. And do you find that to be true?
100%. And the thing is too that, we're going to go ahead and talk to those top ones, right? So we're going to screen them. So it's not just screening, looking at the resumes. If these are your top candidates, we're going to go ahead and interview them. So, and then we're going to bring that grouping to you and say, okay, here's this person. This is what they've done. All this interview outside of the resume alone. So you're going to have that. And then, yes, we will have some others where like, well, they might be, but this is really your top group. Because it's kind of our job, right? I mean, that's kind of what you're wanting us to do so that you're not sitting and going through 150 resumes. Now, will that information be available to you? Of course. If you want somebody wants to sit and look at it, and absolutely 100%. But to bring the board together, it would be the best use just to take the top 10 or
What would you
whatever.
recommend? October 12th, we look at the job description, we post it for 3 weeks. After that, it closes on November 3rd, let's say, right, 5th.
The 5th, yeah, probably 5th.
What would you recommend for us to do next?
Well, okay, so here's the thing. If we don't close till October 5th, November 5th. I know this year is getting through me. We're going to have to, I'm going to have my time to go through. So, I would think you probably unfortunately going to have to do one of those special meetings,
What we recommend is having a special board meeting
somewhere around the week of the 15th.
to look at
however many you figure are in the top.
Yeah.
I mean, we can say a number,
Well,
but
fine.
it's
I
like,
just want to be able to address these questions.
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I know-
Yeah.
I know at this point what we're gonna get.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
I don't want to put anyone on the spot, like,
Right.
okay, so, but between November, on November, let's say the 15th, 16th, does the personnel committee need to meet before then to look at anything? Not
think
necessarily,
so.
we'll just call a special board meeting that week, to discuss the top whatever.
And you might make the comment in October that, that people will be receiving, and are you going, what happened with our search team is they would put the file together and it would come as a link. So we didn't get all the paper. It
And
was,
I was gonna ask you how you wanted to do that. I mean, that's not a problem.
Will it go on our, like, for example, the solicitations, if people applied for, go on our website? Will everyone's resume go on our website?
yep, that's, I mean, ours was, each individual that applied was a link. They had put it all in a, I'm not technologically astute, so I don't know what it was called. But it
It's like a
was
PDF file.
a PDF file. It was a PDF file and it had a link. And so they would send them, they were all numbered because, you know, and then that way if somebody dropped out before we made our selection, then the number was still there, but the name was gone. And so you didn't have all that paper to go through. You just clicked on the link and it would say Stephanie White and get the whole thing there, and it was easier.
That's gonna
didn't-
take someone,
Yeah, they didn't redact anything?
Well, they had to send it in that form.
that's gonna take someone at Appleyard. Are you listening?
Yeah, I'm listening,
Okay.
I'm listening, I know.
Someone
I know.
at Appleyard.
But that's, you know, once it comes, then that's just a matter of posting, right?
Mhm.
So,
Oh, yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
shouldn't be any different than you just posted
I know, but that's gonna be a
Right.
lot of, so just,
Well, but if,
no.
she's not gonna send it individually, she'll do it in batches.
okay.
yeah, I would probably just, it shouldn't be that much if we're just pulling it down. Now, if you want every single person's resume,
So you're just gonna put the top whatever, you're not gonna put every single person.
they would be available if somebody
If
did a
you want it.
public information request, is that what you're saying?
Don't they have to all be there?
they were,
put in?
the only thing like I saw, I know with like the Leon County one is they had just names. And then they had just put met requirements or they didn't have, when they did their initial grouping. And
Sure.
then as you went down
There are
to,
160, were all names were on there, just.
right,
to
but there
check.
wasn't a resume or anything like that. I'm sure to your point, if somebody wanted all that, they could probably.
Yeah, we should go that route. I mean, and then if somebody wants information, we can give it. I mean, but to spend that much, the resources to post all those resumes, that's a lot of,
I just, what's, I don't know, it's a lot of, so,
There's no requirement that the resumes be posted
Okay.
online for everyone to see.
cause it's going to her and therefore
Right, so
we're not
it's-
seeing it, so.
Right, so I think you're making a correlation between what we do with solicitations and posting.
Okay, okay,
And so this
That's
is not
different.
the
Okay,
same
sorry.
as a solicitation for,
okay,
a
sorry.
service. If you wanted them posted, you can. I mean, there's no prohibition. I would say it's just treat everyone fairly.
Right,
So,
right, right. No, we don't have to do that.
You know,
So we don't even
consistently,
have to
right?
put anyone's on, we don't have to put anyone's on there until we get to the top, whatever you say.
Right,
That's
a
what you're
judgment
saying.
call
Okay,
for you.
sorry. I'm
Well,
being
but I
slow.
think that's where, now I'm a little confused. Is everybody gonna be, are all the names and resumes gonna be available to everybody or not? That's,
To everybody on the board or everybody?
well, if they're available to the board, they're available to everybody. So that's,
Well, and you can make them available to everyone on the board and the general public without posting them online.
How? Just
Through
email?
Or a share file link or something of that nature where, right, I mean, the public records request would get it to the public, the board members, if the board members want to see all 300 applications, including, you know, those who are not qualified, then you could do that in advance. In the same way you can give the top 10, you can give all 300, or if you're doing the preliminary work and only providing 10, then you could, you know, just, if there's 10 available, and if a particular board member wanted them all, then that could be made available to that person. So it really is just a matter of how you want to handle it, knowing that ultimately it's all public record.
list every single applicant, knowing that of that 300, there's going to be a bunch that applied for 14 different jobs by one click, et cetera, that just would consume an inordinate amount of time with very
Something
little
that what we
benefit.
can do as well too is something similar to, is we can put together an Excel spreadsheet, right? I mean, with all the people that were not considered, and perhaps maybe we can put some information. I mean, you could just list the name, obviously. Did it, meet minimal requirements? Yes, no. You could do that, or if you wanted to do, and just keep that in the back, just to have from the record keeping, we could have, attach all the resumes to that document, as well. Or, or we could get in and say, John Q. Public works at XYZ in this position, we can do that. I mean, you just kind of have to tell me. I don't know.
Have it on file, met requirement or didn't.
Yeah.
And when we get down to the nitty gritty, we can,
We can get to it.
Hopefully.
I just don't want to put extra work on Carol.
right.
Will all of the applicants be notified by you, met requirements or didn't? How are the responses handled?
We can definitely send, a note, thank you so much for your application. All resumes are currently under review. Should you be, considered to move to the next step, you will be contacted. Thank you so much. Something to that effect.
Okay.
Just so we can
I like
respond to
that,
everything.
just so that
They know they've got, that somebody doesn't come back
It
later and
acknowledges.
say,
Right.
yeah.
Right, that's a good point. And, because you don't rule anybody out until you actually hire somebody. The other question I had was, I've forgotten it again, because I had to do with that notification process. Never mind, go ahead. It'll come back in a minute.
Well, I think some of these things we're gonna figure out as we go along as well too.
I know what it was now.
Okay.
Okay. Can we, as a committee, discuss suggesting to the board when we might be doing interviews? I think that the sooner we put things on people's calendars, and also it might be helpful to candidates to know that it might be the week of, whatever, especially since we're doing this during a holiday time. Are we going to definitely put it off until January to make those final things? But I think that's something that we need to discuss. I think it will be helpful to us and to the public to be able to put those together.
So we have the special board meeting the week of the 15th with the top however many, 10, 15, 20, whatever you think. When, then that's Thanksgiving, then then you get into crazy Christmas time.
You're usually okay, if you hit like first or second week of
During the
December,
daytime,
you're
not at
usually
nighttime,
okay.
probably.
But, especially if you're gonna be doing virtual interviews and not asking anybody to travel, I think you're totally fine right there. Then I push off to the in-person until afterwards.
Stephanie, you might consider seeing if we can schedule the regular board meeting the first Tuesday, move it up earlier just because of the holidays. It's the 14th. I don't know when school gets out or anything, but so
Yeah, we could move that up, but I
could at
don't,
least see if that's a
we'll
possibility.
put that on the agenda for,
Arbor Day? Pearl Harbor Day.
I thought it was December.
We'd have to look and see lots of things, but if that were a possibility,
We'll just put it on the
that,
agenda, move that up
Okay.
to December. Well, to see if the room's available, this room's
And
available.
if we're anticipating interviewing during that time, it's not going to be able to start at 5.
And just, I know,
What do you mean?
If you're going to do interviews on that day, it will need to be more than a 5 PM meeting.
It will take, I mean, like,
I'm until we see, but I'm just thinking that people need to keep in mind, like the day we did interviews, it was an all-day process.
okay, that's what you're trying to say. We can't be here from 5 until midnight. Okay, so.
and with notice, we have found that our group can make daytime. So just
but-
keep that in mind.
So what, is that too soon to say that we could December the 6th, we could have a interview day?
I don't think there's anything wrong with it in saying that we're tentatively looking for the first full week of December
Yeah.
for interviews. see why that's not, you can always move as long
Okay.
as, I know I like that kind of stuff on my calendar.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I just don't know
exactly
what, I mean. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
And what is that consisting of on our process map? Is that basically week 6 is what we're,
I don't even know where we are there.
CT, presidential phone screen, video interviews?
Mhm.
That's good. So
With posting, I mean, just, you know, like, again, this was just kind of proposed, kind of a guideline to kind of use.
Right.
I think we'll definitely, you know, in the, when we've got the holiday in, that's kind of throwing us off as a, you know, if we were doing this in like May or something. So that's gonna throw our process off a little bit, but I think it's fine. You know, it's, people start making thoughts about making changes after the first of the year, so it's not a bad time anyway to be looking for candidates, and they get ready for a fresh start in January, so, you know, I think that's really great.
So then after the one more thing, after the interviews, let's say we have we just interview 10 people on December the 6th, or 5 on December 6th, 5 on December 7th, and then what happens? Then we have to have we have a board meeting to pick our top one, or do we have a?
No, I mean, you would probably do the
top 2
videos.
or 3.
Yeah, you would whittle it down to, I mean, however many, I mean, you might have more than that.
Okay.
And that you might want to do another round.
Another round,
To
okay.
then take it down to the next, and that's kind of, you know,
Kind of depends on numbers.
well,
Okay.
exactly.
So we'll just give them those 2 weeks and go
100%,
from there. Okay.
absolutely. And then you do like another structured type interview, and then you would, I mean, if at all possible, I mean, I think it's very important to bring them here, you know, and that's another thing too, is if we were looking at that, travel expenses for someone to be here would need to be kind of thought about.
Because that's one of the things that some wise person said to me that doesn't live in our community, but who had gone through different search processes, and you probably can verify this. It's kind of like when you take your child to college, and there's some colleges that they feel comfortable at and some that they don't. It doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the.
That's true.
And so we want to be able to offer the job to someone who is excited about coming to our community.
Yeah, that's true.
And that might be
And
something.
they may not know if they don't actually come and visit here.
Well, and that's a great point.
Spouse.
And this kind of brings us full circle here,
Significant other.
is that when they come to the community, like for those last 2, I think it's important to take them, show where some current services are already being funded. You know, this is our needs, you know, this school is, you know, something that would be, that would potentially be, something that would be needed, you know, you've seen our statistics and all like that. These are the communities that are going to be benefiting from that. Drive them around, show them, spend the time with them, making sure, to your point, they understand, you know, yes, you might on Saturday be enjoying a beautiful day at the beach, but Monday through Friday, you're going to be entrenched into these communities. So I think that's something that would be important to do.
Do you have the capabilities, or would it need to be, we had like a host that worked, you know, while one person was being interviewed, then the others were taking a tour. You know, so that they weren't just sitting around waiting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we could set up a schedule.
And I don't know how that works with sunshine and things like that. I mean, but,
No, we would not be going, because we're interviewing somebody while they're touring.
And I would also bring up, as we learn in recruiting physicians and things up at the hospital, a big part of recruitment is said physician's significant other. And failing to recruit that significant other and get their buy-in, you fail.
it's a
They
very
get
true
down
statement.
here, if, at the very least, if the significant other is going, didn't come down at all, then a decision isn't gonna get made until they come down.
I've had more
they
significant
did come-
others kill deals before.
That's exactly right, that's exactly right. And so we better acknowledge that on everything from planning, budgeting, and where's this gonna get in as we start bringing people down? You had made the point previously that we can't access $1 of what's on our budget with the county commissioner until we get we were missing some steps anyway. And we're gonna be spending, so far we haven't spent a whole lot of money, but when we start bringing interviewees and spouses and whatever and putting them up in hotels, et cetera, we're getting ready to start spending some significant amounts of money.
By December, we'll have a check-in.
And hopefully we'll have it, yeah.
Right.
And that's gonna be only a couple, right? I mean, you're only gonna be bringing those couple, and they might even just be here from Tallahassee or some communities nearby, so your costs could be limited as well.
All right. So, anything further? I think we've got a lot
I'm
accomplished.
sorry, I came out shooting it.
No,
That's
we're
good.
We
No,
have
it's
a
good.
schedule.
Yeah.
That's good.
With lots and lots of questions, so
schedules.
thank you for enduring that, I
Sure.
appreciate it, this is great.
Thank you. Now, public, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak?
Shannon, are you speaking today?
Okay, let the record show there was no public speakers. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
readjourn, you're gonna keep us posted as you do